Happy Thursday. Apologies for missing out on the past couple of days, but it's been quite a whirl. And what I'm pushing in today is a very nice couple of folks asked a salient question of what makes Qompass different, particularly as there are a lot of great organizations, a lot of great people who are making things, both AI as a whole and also AI specifically looking at medical education. And right, I think that it's important to acknowledge and see that there really are just so many great innovative things that are happening, and it's not about poo-pooing one way of doing something or saying you have the right answer. It's about everybody coming together, and really the fact is that a rising tide will raise all ships, and things are moving very, very quickly, but it's moving at a pace consistent with what the feedback is given the different use cases and their value. So I think one of the big things to help both showcase the difference and also where a lot of the space currently is in medical education with generative AI. We're going to do a bit of a deep dive in comparison, looking at the two main Qompass services being educational assistance and search, or specifically Agentic search. And then stacking it when we look at custom GPTs from particularly OpenAI, as well as just the Copilot architecture from Microsoft. Because those are really the two main things that people I think are most familiar with within, we'll just say, higher education as a whole, but definitely within medical education, particularly the custom GPTs. So, big difference number one, we are not building on top of OpenAI. So what we see on the right here is two services, and this is me interacting with what's called a terminal. So this is the most direct text-based interface. So I'm going to go ahead and fire up my code editor, NeoVim, and I like it because it is very low energy use. Doesn't need all those bobs and ends and whatnot. It's just gives you what you need and you get the job done. Okay, so right up, messed up that password there. Let's give it another go here. Okay, there we go. So we're going to use we use particularly TypeScript, a superset of JavaScript programming language here to be able to showcase and have something that is much more deployable. The goal is to be able to shift towards more of a Rust architecture, just again given the fact that it's both memory safe in a very robust way, and it has low energy use due to its very efficient just overall framework and the way it handles memory. It has a little bit of prickliness to it as well, but it's at the forefront of my mind that the Change Healthcare cyber attack, as far as we know, that attack, which affected 1 in 3 patients in America, was written in Rust. And so with that, there is a lot of great defense and offense, but to have a defensive structure that is at least on par with the current weapon of the adversary, who would unfortunately bring so much harm to so many people, I think it is something that is very important to ensure that we are being mindful of how, not just what we're building, but how we're building that defensive structure into it. Because unfortunately there are a lot of bad actors out there. So what we're doing is we're using it's called a runtime, or it just we'll get the code to go ahead and execute a little bit more quickly. So it's called bun. Bun. Let's see, was it? We're going to run it in development mode, and we're running it locally. So we're not exposing it to the wide world. We're running it all locally here. Then let's see, this one here. Then we're going to go same thing. Boop. And so what it's doing is there's a specific thing report, almost like a connection for your computer, but again, it's all locally run here. And this is for the purpose of being able to test and make sure that things are running as they should, or if they are not, that we can go ahead and ensure we're seeing ourselves, while at the same time really seeing as close to production as possible. But with this, it's important too of acknowledging the fact that most solutions, they are being hosted in the cloud. They're cloud native, which really that just means it's existing as somebody else's computer, which is fine, right? And cloud's great, but there's a lot of cost that comes with hosting it on somebody else's. So Qompass is really about being able to give the choice of, you want to host it in Google Cloud? Great. You want to host it in Amazon Cloud? Great. You want to host it in Google, Docker, wherever, or you want to host on-prem? Great. We're developing things cloud native, but with the ability to push out to wherever the organization's cloud currently exists. So there's not this big shift with infrastructure change needing to happen. So first pull up here. And so the nice thing is when we do a local host, again, it's interacting with the web, or we're able to put it up into a local browser and then be able to see what we'll look like here. I'll run this here. So this being our education. And, oh, come on, you. Oh, wait, it's because it's being, see, this is why. So we're going to do that. For some reason, it just didn't pick up the full URL there. It's being silly. So I'm waiting for that. So the nice thing about the education piece is, and this is not going to be as fast as the search, but I'm running this locally, and I've got access to a plethora of different models. And we have here our model, Rosie 3. We have an embedding model, which is intended for the ability to take the word inputs that somebody is giving and then turn those into the numbers that the models will actually use to do different actions beyond just input-output. And full disclosure, we've taken Microsoft's Phi 3 model, which is about 2 to 3 billion parameters, so small but powerful, small but mighty, and tuned from both a prompt engineering standpoint as well as a context window standpoint to be conducive to medical education. So, right, because you'll have different ways of tuning and training a model. Effectively, everybody at this point, everybody in the industry, academia, from Yale to Stanford to NVIDIA, are taking proprietary models, or excuse me, industry models like, say, Meta's Llama 3 and Microsoft's Phi 3, which take typically dozens, hundreds, thousands of GPU hours running kilowatts, megawatts, gigawatts energy just to train those, and then they're pulling those down and tuning them to their specific use cases. So here train, tune a lot. Honestly, unless you happen to have a giant GPU cluster, it's all the same. Anybody who is taking a model is tuning it, training it. You're still running it through its paces. It's really just semantics, but it is important to consider the cost that comes to that. So really the big difference is training, very, very expensive from the standpoint of going from zero to initial model, tuning a industry model to a use case, to a data set, and really being able to get it refined so it's useful, much less money-wise, environmental cost-wise. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and queue here, C3, and let's see, I am getting ready for a rotation, and away rotation. How should I best prepare? Boop. And again, the UI, the interface, looks like ChatGPT intentionally, because that is what is familiar, but you'll note that this is not ChatGPT. And again, I'm happy to show under the hood with everything that's happening in real time. Because, well, transparency it's important. It's important that we, honestly, nobody knows 100% what goes on with the models and how exactly they're doing, all the whiz-bang math, but it is important that we are as intentional as possible, as transparent as possible, and as forthright as possible. It is one thing to make a mistake unintentionally or to, in excitement, exaggerate with rapid correction as new information comes about, but when there is this sense that details that are important and really the factuality of things is not being quite honored, that's where trust can be lost very quickly, and honestly, as it should, because it's not magic, it's math, just complex math. But anyways, so Rosie here giving a decent answer, and again with the guidance, the tuning of be empathetic, and not because a model understands necessarily like, oh, well, I have consciousness, a soul, but because through its training process it has come to have a association of the word and really all the things that are connected to empathy as then having a higher priority in communication. So the difference of, okay, act with empathy. All right, then that means that there are certain words I'm going to use more often because they're more associated with what the data sets and with what the representations have to do with being empathetic versus certain terms like, oh, I don't know, let's say just being saying impolite words or slang or things that may be taken as being very direct. These are all things that are going to be less weighted. They're still there, but because of the way we are instructing the model, giving it the guidance of you will act in this way, it then has that system-wide preference. In the same way to think of when you're getting ready to go to the difference of you're getting ready to go out for girls' night, guys' night, and that, like, right, you talk to your friends ahead of time and, hey, tonight we're going to party it up. That is a systematic frame that then sets the tone for the rest of the night versus, oh, we're going out to a nice dinner, we're going out to the opera. That is going to set a different tone, not better, not worse, just different for the rest of the night in that case. And so the nice thing here is, okay, so what are the most important things to bring with me? And again, because as of right now, we're not using a robust data storage system, there is definitely the potential for those hallucinations, for those potential things of a misfire, which is again why we're bringing things or keeping things in-house while we're thoroughly red teaming it, going through every possibility, but at the same time understanding that, as we've seen with a number of different use cases, there really is no way to predict what sorts of things will end up triggering up. Just so too, I would honestly, bluntly say, show me the clinician who has a 100% success rate. Show me the student who has never had a mistrial, a misstep. Show me the person, show me the human who has never made a mistake. And this is not about comparing machine to people. That is not what this is about. What this is about is acknowledging the fact that there are no zero risk situations. There is risk every time you get up from the bed. There is risk every time you go into the car. We manage those risks, and each person has the capacity to decide for themselves what their risk tolerance is. But ultimately, it's the exciting thing about these models, about anything, is to have a personalized agent, a personalized assistant that does not have shame, feelings of ego, of this need to be better than. It's just literally tuned to you, to amplify you, to help you, asking the questions that and getting the feedback that honestly a lot of times we're afraid to ask because we feel stupid asking it. And so to me, that's what really gets me excited about this, is the fact that we can end up having this, right? And with multimodal models, we'll be able to adding those in, but generally just considering all the silliness that's been going on with those, being like text and image and audio, things like that. It's just right now focusing on getting a lot of the text to text right, correct, and cheap. Because again, this right now running $0, $0, yay, free, and decent speed and overall just good use as an option for those institutions that perhaps want to be able to have models, want to be able to test things, but want to have an option to have a midway step of, okay, we don't want to buy ChatGPT Enterprise. I think they're great, but also it's just money. But we also need to do something. We need to jump in, but nobody's really giving me a straight answer. I'm trying to figure it out. We don't really know where to go. So, right, this to me is a great answer towards that of, okay, hey, happy to go ahead and help get you bridge that gap. And ultimately, at the end of the day, what's important is that institution, that client, whoever, they get to make the choice. They get to end up having the informed decision, the shared decision making that has been really so important in the medical side of not just this paternalism talking down to, but this partnership that comes from a deep alignment of values and really the best of what I think we as people want for each other, for ourselves. All right, enough waxing poetic there. So this being the search, agentic search that we're looking at, because when we think of models, there's really this big conversation around, like this model is better, and like, this has trillions of 40 billion parameters and 7 billion parameters and a trillion parameters. Oh God, there's so much. So I mean, yes, GPT-4 from OpenAI is estimated roughly being, I think, somewhere between like 1 trillion something, some ridiculous amount of parameters, which is effectively the number of different possible connections they can end up making. Like think about how many does the human brain have? It's a pretty good amount, but honestly, what we're finding that's more important is, and even with OpenAI's, with GPT-4, their model, while being giant, it's actually a mixture of experts model, meaning they took a bunch of smaller, domain-specific models and they mixed them together. And that way, when it receives input, only the triggered expert out of the set will be activated. So you're getting all of that capacity, but not necessarily having to have it running all the time, because I mean that's huge, right? But that being said, really now with Llama 3 having come up, there is, I think we're seeing about Llama 3 Instruct, which is from, and all the Llama models are from Meta. we're seeing that they're pretty close to GPT-4, which is bananas when you think about it, because Llama 3 had two sizes of models. Right now it's an 8 billion parameter model and a 70 billion parameter model. So 70 billion versus around 1 trillion. And Llama 3 is right now, I think, just below, if not at par, and even better than GPT-4 on a number of tasks. Now, and again, there's lots of different things to consider, and right, what's the thing it's being used for, how much additional data, how much additional fine-tuning, but the point is the fact that even that a model with that much of a difference in size can be put out in the open source community, which is really just a way of saying, hey, they put it out and now anybody can download it and play with it, with the licensing given from Meta typically, but there's also plenty of ways to get around that. Not that I would endorse that, but just acknowledge the fact that does happen. There are a number of people who have taken the model and then put it out there, right? Risk tolerance. So there's such a huge difference in the size, and then not as much of a difference in the capability, which is right, because then it speaks to the fact that it's becoming arguably less important about the size of the model, and I think really people are just trying to keep the energy bills down, and much more about what things are you giving the model to do, and how are you using it? What tools are you giving it to use, besides just input output, right? And so with that, let's go with, let's see, same question. Let's go with, let's try something random. I'd like to get married in med school. But I'm worried about dating. Do you have any advice? Boop. All right, and yeah, again, building out in the open, building out in, well, still working out some of the color scheme here, but big thing to notice is that how fast that answer was. And not just that, but we're seeing a lot of answers, and yes, I can practically hear the folks being like, oh, Reddit, oh, student data network, oh. Yes, this is where people are getting information from. So for an advisor to hear a student who's suddenly thinking of, oh, this is what I should do, or this, and they're like, where are you hearing this from? Where are you getting this? They'll find out right here. Because again, these are the sorts of questions that will get asked. And better than that, though, is the fact that we have this ability to actually pull up in real time videos. Again, from a place that is accessible to everybody, a shared canvas for folks. And yes, is it PubMed? No, for this iteration. But believe you me, we are integrating that as we speak, because, and well, let's just say that PubMed has certain things are, some of the papers that have come out have been interesting. Also interesting that now Archive, which is a preprint server, as well as medRxiv and bioRxiv, are endorsed by the NIH, National Institute of Health, and put into PubMed with a pilot program that they've had. Right? And Archive is actually spelled, no one would ever think that's how you pronounce it. But any sort of paper that you're wanting about AI, you go to Archive. And the nuts thing, I mean, this thing, like, and this really blew my mind, is how many people in the medical space are publishing to Archive. I mean, this is, 25 April. And the thing about this is it costs $0 to publish. Now, technically, is it publication? Because it's going into this preprint server, and then, right, it's not necessarily in a journal per se, but here's the important thing. Anybody in the world can access this. Anybody. And can look through it. And they've got all their contact information. So there are a number of papers. Attention. That's all you need. Like, let's see. Attention. Positioning. Yeah, sort of a joke around that, because that first paper that talked about the transformer architecture was all about attention. Oh, there we go. So, submitted on 15 August 2023, last revised 19 September 2023. So, believe you me, there are plenty of folks who are messaging saying, hey, this is crap, or hey, this needs to be this, or hey, right? And so, this may not be necessarily peer-reviewed quite in the same sense as PubMed, but make no mistake, this is being shown really to then the entire world. So the entire world is your peer reviewer. So overall, right, and to see how many people or how few people are really looking at that, right, that's a big difference too. And with this though, because we do want to showcase something a little more, on the academic side, how would I best prepare for an way rotation? Boop. And so it is reflecting, really what we're seeing is what is it that people are both commonly looking into, as well as what are the questions that have been asked previously. And so with that, we can see reliable resources are coming up based off of the context of the question, because, no surprise, a lot of people in the medical space are going to end up asking this question. But this is what I would suggest, and really what I've aimed for, is not about having the prescriptive answer of, this is right, this is what the right thing is. We have an azimuth, which in the navigation space is you have a compass in hand, and that is giving you a waypoint of where to go. This is a check to make sure, yep, I'm still going on the right path. We have anchored sources here, and we have these charts of our videos. Yeah, on King, I would call that pretty good. A little bit biased though, but really, again, I think for for advisors, this would be great for, hey, I have no idea what this Anki thing is that all these students are like, where do I even look for? Oh, hey, I'm trying to have a conversation with a student about a specialty that I've literally never seen. How can I, what's out there for that? And this then creates that bridge for that advisor, for that student, to be able to both see the same thing in real time. And this being powered with Grok, a language processing unit, so different from the GPUs from NVIDIA that typically power most things. And that's why it is wicked fast, because it was made by the same guy who ended up making Google's tensor processing unit, or TPU, initially. And that's really where their big AI lead was for such a long time. But now he's his own company, Grok, with a Q. And the LPU, just absolutely fantastic. And so this is running Llama 3 with the LPU, and at about 800 tokens a second. And a token is basically a word. So 800 words a second. 800 words a second to just write anything. And for right now, they're offering free, it's a common theme, free inference for their developers, for folks who are willing to go ahead and use their product and go out into the world and make things. Which may, it's yeah, that sounds great. Let's tie a rocket ship to this and just go zoom. So, of course, right, we wouldn't be remiss here of last, and I think I'm going to actually close out a little bit earlier here, just getting a little waxing, a little poetic. So, ChatGPT, right, OpenAI, great service, absolutely phenomenal, standing on the shoulders of giants. The interesting thing is that most people who are in the space and are using this for medical education are not really talking about the custom GPTs, which is super interesting, or at least not showing what's under the hood. So let's take a look, shall we? So what are custom GPTs? That's a great question here. Let me make my head a little bit smaller. So there's somewhere between like 10 to 20,000, maybe even more, of these generative pre-trained transformers, which is effectively, see, I would get my interest with saying effectively. It is a GPT, so think of, again, like ChatGPT, but it gives you the ability to give it specific instructions. So, like for example here, this is an image generator, you've got consensus, he's got DALL-E for images, for writing, say, let's see, okay, and people actually vote on it, and they give a rating. There's that 2 million conversations, and tells you who the author is, and you can start a chat. So in the event that you're like, oh man, I don't even know where to start, and you have a OpenAI subscription, well then you just look for the custom GPTs. You're like, oh, write me a 1,000-word analysis on the future of GPTs. And then boop, 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 right? But again, this is not currently looking out into the world or really being able to access the internet. It's not. It is implementing some retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, given the fact that it is, what's the word I'm looking for? Now it has the ability to actually hold memory, and this is actually, I snapped this from earlier from OpenAI. So you're having memory across the chats, which that does bring up some consideration in terms of folks who are really going gung-ho in this on, oh, we're going to bring this into education space, we're going into sensitive areas. Like, okay, just understand that this is going to hold on to that information. Where does it live? Well, it lives on the OpenAI servers, is where it lives. Which again, given how OpenAI's enterprise services, how secure those are, I mean, we're talking about they've got a lot of things in hand. That is not a bad option at all. Not a bad option at all. It is just something to be mindful of the fact that this information, there is not going to just stay in one place necessarily. My assessment would be that they have taken, specifically, they've made what are called these vector databases, and effectively think of it just as a second brain. Oh, it's the effective thing, my goodness. So it is a repository of information that it can hold on to. It takes the inputs, turn those into numbers, and it holds on to those. And based off of your inputs, it's going to give you more as it picks up on your information that it has, that you've given to it, to be able to then more rapidly associate things and give you answers based off what you've been inputting. So it's a good thing for the purpose of making it more tuned to you. It just also takes considering that you are giving that information. Which again, right, is where it says review, delete specific memories, restart from scratch, turn the feature off. So you have that choice. And again, we see this, I think to me, the great AI companies and the ones that I look to emulate is, yes, make a great product. Make an absolutely phenomenal product, and make sure that it is precise, reliable, and doesn't lead to nuclear warming, right, in just terms of all the cost of energy. But ultimately, give choice. Give choice. Give people the ability to make their own choice, safely, securely, and without feeling like they have to pay or not be able to play at all. People being able to have a choice is important. It's perhaps the most important thing. And feeling like they can come into it on their own, that they have that ability to make what's best for them. Because at the end of the day, we all have different things we're trying to go for. Alright, so with this though, so I mean, I've made a couple of these. So right, for USMLE step 1, trying some different red teaming to be able to get it to squeeze out certain things, more so just of getting longer answers. But the big and then this is one of the earlier versions for Rosie, and of course I'm proud of that. And although we pivoted away from the image, went with a red panda, just it's very adorable. But the thing is though with this is that we can, I'll show you what's under the hood here. So this is for anybody who's using a custom GPT, which again, great service, great product. But know that this is what it is that you're going to this little builder screen, you're going to give it a name, put a picture, description, you're going to give it some custom instructions, which, for me, gave it, hey, here's this, da-da-da-da-da. You're going to give some conversation starters. I gave it knowledge based off of open source, open access, articles have been written by absolutely phenomenal orthopedic surgeon mentor, Dr. Kenny Gundel, excuse me, as well as information from that's openly available, say from like Eris, for just the worksheets, the blank worksheets for that. And it can give capabilities for web browsing, for image generation, and they say code interpreter, which anything having to do with data analysis, math, whatever. And then you can also make a new action for it. And so with this, let's see. Yeah, I don't really have anything for that right now, but things like, oh heck, yeah, weather, pet store, and a lot of this is Python and was it JavaScript, object notation, JSON. But make no mistake, whenever you're seeing a custom GPT or someone who's posting like, oh hey, look, I made this with look at my custom GPT. This is what it is. That they're right, and which is again, it is an art form in of itself to be able to know what kinds of prompts are good, what types of prompts are not good, but it is not coding. It is not, or not in the traditional sense. Not like again on the right hand side here. Let's see. Right, so actual code, which from the standpoint of this all being TypeScript and cascading style sheet CSS for the view, and we have a container file here for being able to use one of the major platforms for generative AI microservices, Docker, as well as Podman, which is what I prefer to use, just because it is a little more secure, but really it's tomato potato. It's all pretty much the same. So let's see. Lastly, where was I going to go here? So yeah, if you were to wanted to make your own custom GPT, let's see. Was it here? I'll be honest. It's been a while since I've actually used OpenAI. Just trying to not give myself right, trying to weed myself off. But right, GPT-4, I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal. I mean, again, DALL-E for images, browse the net, analysis that you can put into your own custom GPT. Most people don't. They avoid the web browsing, understandably, because they don't want to get whacked by it actually going somewhere. But again, to me, a little bit of trust in folks goes a long way. And if folks want to try to use a tool to do something not good, they're going to find a way to do it. So I'm much more interested in looking ahead of that and trying to do our best to partner and put guardrails, but ultimately not be prescriptive on folks. Because let's see. Yeah. Oh, there it is. That's where it is. Okay, so yeah. So sorry about that. If you want to make your own, if you have a subscription, you want to make your own, you can go to create, and there's again let's see how many medical. Let's see, medical research, AI for medical students, therapists, psychologists, Amboss, medical notes. Let's see more. And again, you can see which ones are popular. And I think I, honest to God, have forgotten. But there was initially an offer that folks would be able to actually enter a shared revenue agreement with OpenAI based off of which one of these was most popular. What was his name? I think. I'm just looking for, now there's one physician I've seen talking about custom GPTs recently. Yeah, Compassionate Care Guide by Grant Walker. Browsing, Dolly Images, no web search, which again, totally get that. So if we hit click start, when might someone consider hospice care? And again, this is a custom GPT, so it's still effectively using what it is, a GPT that's been given instructions. No more, no less. Which again, still great, but it comes with some of its own issues there. And again, if we think about, say, a medical school and giving everybody access to this, money-wise, that can be expensive. And oh man, it's really thinking there. Maybe it's sure it's probably something on my end, my machine, versus anything with that one. Right. But again, even like as we see with just regular old ChatGPT basic, GPT-4. I mean, this technology, it's bananas. It is just absolutely bananas what it can end up doing. And the fact is that now, I mean, heck, not only do we see that integrated there, but we have it's integrated in Copilot, which when we think Copilot, when you hear Copilot, I mean, there are other industries that, or other companies talk, but really, to me, that's folks who are using the Copilot system from Microsoft, which is great. I mean, it's right, like, but then it's also, again, you're building on top of something. You're building not even with the actual training of the model itself. You are taking a GPT from OpenAI, which they're all typically they're effectively all transformers, but you're taking an OpenAI product and just putting a wrapper on top of that. Which again, given everything that's happening, I mean, it's not a bad choice, but again, just understand that there's limitations to that. And right, because let's see, Copilot. Microsoft has a great service with Copilot Studio, and now even Microsoft Azure AI Studio. Yeah, Azure AI Studio. And I've used it. I've played with it. Made sure that it had another version of Rosie on here because I wanted to make sure to see like, oh, hey, like how does this work? Looks similar because again, when you hear Copilot, that is Microsoft's using GPTs that they own 49% stake in OpenAI to then power all of the different AI services they have here. Let's see, how can I get ready for an OA rotation? Boop. That's right, so this one was about being able to, oh, that's right. So originally it was about being able to have that retrieval augmented generation pointed to those websites, but it also costs, how much does it cost? I want to say it's around $200 a month. And granted, you get to do all sorts of whiz-bang customization to it, but yeah, I do not have that. So let's see. Yes, originally, right? So using these, I had it linked to PubMed, but then the trial ended up running out, and so I went ahead and abandoned that because, again, it's a great thing to be able to use, but just not something that, to me, it doesn't quite fit what I'm looking for. And so I'm much more the type to want to build it, to learn from the industry, to learn from standing on the shoulders of giants, but to ultimately build my own solution that I know and that I can speak confidently on, that amplifies the things that the lessons I've learned from a lot of great folks, as well as some of the values that I think that are important to make sure that, again, really reflect what's the best of us. And as a former intelligence officer, I'll tell you that there's a lot of familiar terrain here, and it's definitely very weird to see some of the stuff like, oh, so we're just talking about that in public now. It's interesting, but at the same time, I'm very excited about the fact of how much intelligence, compressed information, can be used to uplift, amplify, unite, having seen it go the other way, and having wielded it in a way where it does carry a lot of ethical and philosophical weight to it, because you have to ask those big questions of what is right, what's the right decision right now, and what are we going to think about this 5 years from now? And because it's very easy when you're wielding something that is nobody else really gets to look behind the curtain to, and right, it's like, oh, we'll know, we'll find out. It's like, well, you'll know. And so it matters. It matters to know that what you're building, what you're delivering, what you're doing, it reflects truth. It reflects the reality. We are what we repeatedly do. And so to do right is to build towards being a person who can become a champion of what the right things are. And so, with that being said, well, this went way longer than I originally thought it was going to, so I apologize on that. But my hope is that you get to see today, and from a very broad scope, what the difference is with Qompass here. And I had to put it into one phrase. It's cost-conscious generative AI services. If time and money are the two big differentiators here in AI, well, we're most interested in helping folks save money and giving back their time so that they can spend it where they want to, not feeling as if they have to keep up or make these big choices with tools that are unfamiliar and unwieldy in their hands, but that we can give them a navigator, a way to get to where they want to go, how they want to get there, and quickly, because brevity is the soul of wit. That being said, that's all for tonight, and I will see you in the next one.